In its prime, the Central Line in Cape Town was the busiest corridor in the country, transporting around 500,000 commuters daily.
Cape Town is the only city in the country where middle class and working class people can mix on trains. So you can have teachers from Googs coming to work in the city together with workers from Googs coming into the city. The same from the Southern Line, the same from the Belleville Northern Line, and so on. So it's the only line that can take the whole population on it, working population. So it's also the most affordable way of traveling.
However, Cape Town's Central Railway line has not run smoothly since 2017.
The Central Line has not been operational since December 2017, when a train driver was killed and the train drivers decided to strike. At that point, that line started becoming inoperable.
The COVID-19 pandemic also had an enormous financial impact on PRASA, including the Central Line. Lax security measures opened the way for illegal occupations, vandalism and theft of equipment. Relocating the families in order to restore train services proved a massive task for the city of Cape Town and PRASA.
People won't believe that at the beginning of this year, this calendar year, in January of this year, there were still people that were living between Nyanga and Philippi. We had to relocate these 891 families to a temporary accommodation closer to our station at Stock Road and rebuild the infrastructure from the ground all the way to Nolungile.
The Central Line, a commuter rail service operated by Metro Rail Western Cape and a division of PRASA, is making a gradual return. PRASA has partially recovered the lines between Cape Town and Belleville via Langa. The other line that is running is the one that we took on our trip from Cape Town to Nolungile. A single ticket cost R7.50. In comparison, a taxi would cost around R46.
The destruction of rail has meant that whether you're a security guard or a domestic worker, your monthly rail fare was never more than R250 a month. But suddenly you have to fork out R1,200 a month because you have to use taxis or buses. The delays in the trains have caused people to come late to work, lose their jobs, and so on. The costs further have meant that, as a consequence, people have gone from the destruction of the rail line, people have gone onto the roads, those who can drive cars. That has meant that the Cape Town traffic jams has led to an increase of 2 hours. So you imagine the working day of people has been lengthened. You've got a cut in pay and you've got a lengthened working day.
Welcome on board the train to Mandalay Station. The next stop is Mandalay Station.
Cape Town's crucial artery may not be fully operational, but it's come a long way from having only 13 of its 124 lines working.
At the moment, as we speak to you, there are only 7 stations in the Western Cape that do not have access to a train.
This single mother of 3 is a domestic worker in the city's suburbs. Having the train back in service means she's able to put food on the table instead of spending half her income on buses and taxis.
The train iyakhoneka bayokhwele uyakwazi usave yabo andisalove nolova ngomsebenzini wabe ke ndilove nqwanayo.
PRASA is not only investing in modernizing and restoring services, but also improving customer experience. Advanced features such as automated doors, CCTV cameras, and air conditioning are aimed at attracting passengers from all economic backgrounds.
The CEO of a company should be able to use our train in order to get to a board meeting, in order to get to a stakeholder meeting. But the person that works for the CEO at their home should be able to use exactly the same train to get to where the CEO lives, look after the CEO's kids, look after the CEO's house, but both of them must be transported with equal dignity.
Beyond the Central Line in Cape Town, PRASA has made significant strides in restoring passenger rail services across the country. To date, 31 of the 40 lines are operating nationally, with over 266 of the 463 stations that were vandalized refurbished to basic functionality. With the introduction of additional physical security, PRASA has been able to reduce the number of security incidents by 80%. The agency has also initiated safety awareness campaigns.
It's quite important to do regular safety campaigns to make sure that everybody is very much aware, and we promote rail safety on board our trains, at stations and at all the other areas where we can, so that we are all aligned to understand the issue of safety.
Improving customer relations through regular interactions now forms part of PRASA's long-term strategy, yielding positive results.
Our trains are full to capacity. We started slowly, but as people got, accepted the trains are back, they've seen our beautiful trains, as the Mellis have run to the people's train. They've now experiencing the train, and our trains are 100% full during peak hours. And then obviously after between 9 and 3, we have the off-peak, but as you can see, the train is 90% full.
PRASA says it's almost done with phase 1 of its infrastructure plan, taking charge of its assets and getting trains back on the railway line. The next phase, to kick off in the second half of 2025, will focus on improving efficiency.
The next stage is what PRASA calls our optimization stage. What then do we do is, with the recovered lines, where we are running a train every hour, where we are running a train every 30 minutes, we try to move a train every 15 minutes on those corridors. The ultimate goal is for PRASA to run a train every 10 minutes in all of our corridors.
It's a big step forward. There's still a journey ahead to fix the governance at PRASA, to ensure that there are competent people in every post, to ensure that the city and PRASA have a service level plan that is realistic, that is allowed to be, PRASA can be held accountable, the city can be held accountable, but also that devolution happens. Because what you want in Gauteng is for Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, city of Joburg, to operate through the province, so that the province takes control of PRASA in Gauteng, and in Cape Town, because it's just, the rail is basically in Cape Town, the city takes control. And it doesn't matter who's politically ruling any of these places, it is important for local control. You don't want to go to Pretoria to go buy your toilet roll when you're in Cape Town.
Continued pressure from United Behind and the City of Cape Town yielded results. On December 5, PRASA signed a first-of-its-kind service level plan designed to enhance cooperative governance and service delivery. More such SLPs between PRASA and Metro can be expected to follow.
This agreement reflects a shared commitment to meeting service delivery obligations under national legislation and ensures PRASA fulfills its mandate to provide safe, reliable and accessible rail services within Cape Town. The plan complies with the National Land Transport Act, which calls for consistent collaboration between PRASA and local governments. Through regular engagement and progress monitoring by an SLP steering committee, both parties will work in good faith to deliver improved services for commuters. Our goal is clear: a rail service that runs on time, operates reliably across all lines, and meets the needs of Cape Town's residents. The city is fully committed to its role in making this vision a reality.
According to PwC's July 2024 Economic Outlook, 82% of South Africans are willing to use public transport if their area has better infrastructure. So, what will it take to get us there?
Unbeknownst to many people, most of the well-known metro systems, like in New York or in London, are heavily subsidized by government because The win in the fiscus isn't in terms of ticket sales, it's in terms of removing vehicles, private vehicles off the road, not having that huge push in terms of building car parks where you park your vehicle and roads. There's emissions as well, and there's, of course, the use of diesel, because that's a huge chunk out of fiscus. So one of the first things we have to do is we have to improve the way people move around in the country. And that's a tall order, because I think that's even in worse state than what logistics is.
If you do not have a functioning rail line, and if the infrastructure is not strengthened to carry that, it impacts badly on the question of spatial justice. It means that poor people who already have to pay to get to work now don't have the opportunity to go and look for work. Secondly, it means that if you in a poor community, you cannot get to a beach, you can't get to a soccer match affordably. In addition to those things, if the infrastructure is not developed, you do not create jobs. Infrastructure development creates employment, which have spin-off effects. Infrastructure development, like rail, reduces climate impact, and it reduces spatial inequality and spatial apartheid, because people can get from point A to point B fast and affordably.
On the continent of Africa, and I'm from the transport sector and I understand well, there are several investment projects in ports, in rail, and we've seen a growth of airports as well on the African continent, with many countries recognizing the importance of that. But being the lead company that we have been as airports company South Africa, both on the continent and featuring as an important network globally, we really believe we are at the center of that African continental trade. Why? It would take about 10 years for a port development to be concluded, commissioned, and operational. And yes, a lot of freight generally it travels by sea, and seaports are important for that, particularly for global country-to-country trade. But for the African continent, we're unlikely to rely totally on all goods at sea, even though we have long coastlines, because there's just not enough ports to carry that capacity. The best solution for inland, so to speak, Africa is actually aviation.
We are working towards a situation where we have much closer cooperation between the three spheres of government, so that we have a more seamless approach to the way in which we manage public transport and commuter transport in general.
Back to where we started, we spent 96 hours traversing South Africa's rail, road and air transport infrastructure. And one thing is clear, transport in the country is definitely moving. But we still have a long road ahead of us. President Cyril Ramaphosa used Transport Month to highlight that the country's infrastructure gaps and funding needs are immense. It will take billions and decades without contribution from the private sector. New technology is also paramount. But money alone will not solve all problems. Successful transport systems from around the world use a combination of three key elements: integrated planning, integrated infrastructure, and integrated operations to make travel easier, efficient, and affordable.